I just, I'm really excited about tonight because, Women to Women is a networking group, and we talk about being mature Christian women.
Mm.
When do we ever reach true maturity? That's the question. That's probably the first thing we should talk about. But it's really, like we all have had experience, and we're all at different ages. I'm the oldest. And so you're much younger than I am, and Sharon, you're much, much younger than all of us. So, we're coming in from 3 different perspectives, and I think it can just really open up the conversation. There's so many people who are recording so many things on Facebook where they're talking about, relationship with Jesus, and this is, how you grow, and talk about the scriptures and all, but they don't get down to the nitty-gritty, basic, everyday things of life. And I'm pretty much all about that. I'm into that. I'm about the foundational stuff, like family, home, practicality. How does that all fit into the grand scheme of things in God's plan? So that's why I wanted to start this program. I wanted to start it so that we could have a conversation with other women, just talk among ourselves, and just really talk about what it means, especially today's day and age, which is so difficult. It's such a difficult time to be living for so many reasons. So let's get on then. So for my guests who are here with us tonight, we have Stella T., who is the Executive Director of Golden Lampstand Ministries, based here in Connecticut.
Yes.
And from China, originally from Hong Kong.
Originally from Hong Kong.
From Hong Kong. Yeah. And so Stella, and she's also an executive working in the marketplace, and holds down a full-time job and has a family. And so she'll be with us tonight. And also Sharon, I don't see your face, Sharon. Where are you? I want to see you because
I'm here.
Here we are. There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to be able to see your face. I didn't have you on gallery view. Don't you love Zoom? Sharon is also from Hong Kong, but originally from India, and is Sharon Dhavale. And Sharon is, I'm privileged and honored to say she's like one of my spiritual children. She always just an amazing, amazing young woman, graduate with a Master's of Divinity from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. She's much, much smarter than I am. Much smarter. Both of you are much smarter than I am.
Oh, come on. You're wiser.
So I'm not putting myself down. I'm just speaking the truth, because I know I'm very smart in practical experience of life. So anyway, we're going to just be having a discussion tonight and talking, and I'll start off by asking some questions, and we'll just see where the conversation goes. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
Wonderful. So Stella, let me start with you, because you are multifaceted. You are Executive Director of Golden Lampstands Ministries, and I'm privy to that because I'm also involved with the ministry. But so I've worked with you, and I have seen what you can do, and I'm very impressed with what you can do.
Oh, thank you.
You can multitask better than any person I've ever met in my whole entire life. But I guess my main question for you tonight, because there's a lot of women out there who are really thinking, like, I'd really like to be involved in ministry, but I don't have the time because I have family. I have a lot of responsibilities at home. I have, I'm working at church, but it's not as much as I would like to. But I was wondering, what kind of advice would you give to women today who really want to get involved in ministry, but just don't feel like they have the ability or the time, or what would you say to them?
So that's an interesting question because, I'm still learning. And I think,
We all are learning.
yeah,
Yeah.
we all are learning. And I think it's the desire that you want to serve is the most important thing. And you serve in different capacity, right? And when you see a ministry opportunity, as we all have experienced, first of all, the most important thing is I would never really just want to do a ministry for the sake of a ministry. That's the number one thing. You wouldn't want to do anything that you don't, you just feel obligated to do, but you have to love what you do regardless, right? So I was just before here talking with you, I was cooking for my husband, just getting ready for the dinner, and then jump right into the call so that I can do this, and then I'll go back to eat. So this is a balancing between time and what I love to do, because I don't want to give up the time to really enjoy this conversation. So from ministry perspective, the most important thing, like I said, number one is you gotta have the, what we call the spiritual, uh, vision from God that you should be doing this, and you think about it thoroughly. I pray a lot actually before I accepted this calling to start this Golden Lampstand ministry, because that was the very first thing that you were talking about, right? I worry about, what if I don't have enough time? How about all the church ministries that I'm doing? How about balancing with my family and work and all that? Somehow I have to, first of all, believe that God will lead me in the way that, most pleasing to him. And I'll just along the way. So there are times I really can't do certain things in the ministry. It's also a learning experience to let go and let other people do the work, right? So but the most important thing is that you really know that is first is from God, and then you enjoy it, and as you go along, God will tell you, and you'll find out whether that's the right fit for you or not. And the other thing is important to do is, like, we do a lot of thinking along the way and figure out if this is, are you using your talent as God has given to you. And if it is not, it's totally okay to kind of make sure, of course, very, in a very fun, it's like anytime God wants me to stop, I can just walk away. Because the last thing you want is tie yourself to a ministry or particular task that you're not free anymore. In Jesus Christ, it's just as much fun and as much devoted to the Lord when you are just like what I was doing, cooking for my husband, or, doing a spreadsheet at work, helping people to find what they love to do, enjoying this conversation. This is all amazing. One of the motto I have for my ministry all along since I was, a little Sunday school teacher when I was young in Hong Kong, it's like, it's joyful to serve the Lord. Because I've seen, unfortunately, sometimes so many people in church, just they dragging their feet and just to try to kind of do the work, and they're just not that happy. It's like, that cannot be right. I guess it's a woman thing, right?
Well, we work, as you know, I've worked an awful lot with people in marketplace ministries. And one of the things that we say is your passion has to be greater than the amount of work it takes to accomplish the job. So if the passion is there and the love is there, then you have much easier way of accomplishing the task that God calls you to accomplish, because there's something deep inside of your spirit that just cries out and says, wow, I just really, really, really want to do this. This is so exciting to me. And it's just a fun thing to do. And I know that with Father Abraham, who is the head of the ministry, Pastor Abraham, he says that, when the passion is there, you get tired, but you still enjoy it.
Yes.
So, yeah, and sometimes you do get tired, don't you? Now, Sharon, you're in a different perspective. You just started a whole new job. You're working in British Columbia. She's coming to us from Canada. And yeah, and so, and you started working as a chaplain at is St. George, right? University?
At UNBC, University of Northern British Columbia in Prince George.
Prince George. I knew there was a George in there someplace. Yeah. So tell us, how is things going for you? And being a woman in ministry and being single, and you have family far away.
Mm-hmm.
You have a whole different set of situations in your life than, like say Stella, for example. She has a husband and she has children here, but you're here and you're far away from your family and the ministry you grew up in with your parents. I know they have a great ministry in Hong Kong and India. And so tell me, how is it for you as you go day to day in what you do?
Yeah, for me, I found some of the greatest support as I pursue ministry or think about what God wants me to do through church family. Not having a family of my own in the traditional sense and having my parents and brother far away, God has encouraged me in ministry through church, and through a lot of relationships that have served as mentoring relationships. And I think about you, Barbara, and the sort of relationship I have with you and Jerry, which have, really fueled not only a passion for ministry, but also just, it's God's gift of modeling and intergenerational models, and to be able to see God's faithfulness throughout the generations. And so for me, as I go from day to day, I'm working with colleagues, not only from my church currently, which is the Christian Reformed Church here in Prince George, but also with the InterVarsity chapter here in Prince George for UNBC. So, I'm never alone, and I've never been expected to work alone. And that has been a powerful reminder that when you do God's work, and when you seek first his kingdom, he really does add all that you need. And so when I was moving to Prince George, I remember telling the Lord, like, I don't have anybody here. Like, this is a completely new place. But 3 months later, I cannot say that I'm doing this alone. Like, God has added partnerships, he's added friendships, he's added financial support, he's added a church family, and he's continued to give me just friendships from the States where I was before, and friendships from Hong Kong, where I was raised. So it's just such a privilege to belong to the local church and to serve students in partnership with the local church, but to be reminded every day that I'm part of the global church for the purpose of God's kingdom. So yeah.
That's amazing. The whole idea of the global church today is it's Rosh Hashanah. And I was on an international prayer call the other day with a group of people that I know we have a group called Interprayer. And one of the guys on the call is a prayer leader from Egypt. And he was saying tonight that Rosh Hashanah is starting, and when the shofar blows, that there's going to be a shaking going across the entire world. And I when I heard that, it just kind of reverberated in my spirit, like I got so excited to think about, because there's so much prayer that's happening in the world today. There's so much happening in the global church. We're not, the church is really becoming united. And to me, that's one of the things that I prayed for since 1999. I started the Connecticut House of Prayer, and our tagline was to pray crossing denominational and cultural barriers for the purpose of unity. And I thought, wow, like I've been able to cross so many cultural barriers. I've been able to pray with so many different ethnic groups. And now we're beginning to see the unity rising up in the church. And I know, how does that, Stella, how does that affect you in the ministry you're doing with Golden Lampstand? Do you see that happening? Is there more unity that's taking place in what you're doing, or is it even amongst the churches in China, for example? I know There's obviously you're doing so much that affects China and the Chinese population, and in the church becoming united over there. Do you see something like that happening from that perspective?
Yeah, I definitely see that happening. And actually, not just the Church of China, but just here in New England, for example, this is where we stand, right, in Connecticut. Before was more like, we go day by day, every day. We were just focusing on our church ministry. And even if we expand a little bit more, maybe with another church in the area. But right now with the Golden Lampstand, we are focusing and being called to say, hey, we are the Golden Lampstand. And this Golden Lampstand is not just North America, Canada, or just the area we're in. It really is the whole world. The pandemic may be seen as, in particular because of the pandemic may be seen as really, a disaster or the worst things that's ever happened in our lives. But in a way, it is also a blessing from the Lord that we can break a lot of barriers. Right now, I've heard, for example, some people we were working on, when we started, we already started the global classroom. There weren't that many people get involved, even in China, because people were not really used to it. But now, because of the pandemic, you gotta do Zoom. You gotta do connected through somehow, through the internet. And because of that, it broke a lot of barriers. All of a sudden, a lot of even classes that people in seminary schools or any other organization used to be, you have to go to that place, you got to pay for the fee. They all of a sudden just woke up, hey, we have to offer something for somebody here. If the heart of our ministry is to serve others, there's an opportunity right now with lower costs, with broader reach point, so people can pray together, people can learn together. We can tap into, great ministry leaders like you to serve the people in China, for example, that we couldn't really be doing that before. You saw how we exploded from just only maybe 40 students to 200, people attending to your school of prayer from all over the world. I'm not just talking about China. I'm talking ministry leaders that were they're from, I couldn't say it, but Far East area, in the places where they're serving the Islamic populations, in the Russian area. So there are people like from Canada, from anywhere of the world, Australia, who heard about it, and they can gather together with the heart if they want to learn. They get opportunity to learn. So we still have some language barrier. For example, I have to do translation, but the message is there. I was so touched, especially in the school of prayer. After we did the exercise, we saw so many people giving out the messages and couldn't help themselves in the chat room to tell us how they were so moved. They can now hear God's voice. They can now see Jesus. And they were talking about how they saw Jesus was sitting on a bench and talking with them. There were people hearing the Lord said, feed my lamb. There were people who literally saying, I couldn't say anything because I'm crying. That touched my heart so much, because it's not just about, I can now count how many people participating. It is really also because I could see and feel the work of the Holy Spirit. This is definitely just the beginning of it. We need to think more about how we utilize the tools, be more generous in sharing our experiences and touching whoever we could touch. I mean, just thinking about it, I'm so excited. One of the things that we were called in Golden Lampstand is to, as Chinese Christians, we really is in debt to a lot of American and English ministers who gave up their lives for China. I still, I cry when I was listening to stories of the martyrs when they were really slaughtered by the government, when they were worried, they were upset with the Western world at the time, and then they simply took it on, good people like the people who would build hospitals and schools, and not only just preaching, but they were caring for the community. And they gave up their lives for us so that we can have people like me knowing the Christ, back in Hong Kong, in China. we are here now. I always thought, like, why am I here?
Yeah.
But a few years ago, the Lord is calling us, like, you need to pay the debt of the gospel back to the people here. That's one thing I heard from Father Abraham. Like, this is the frozen land where now we need to touch the heart of the people here. So with this multinational ministry, I'm seeing now we can do this because we tend to maybe really limited to our own little ethnic group. So
yeah, it's awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you. Sharon, what do you think? What would you say to women who wanted to get involved in ministry in the church today?
Oh, I would say don't think too much, just go for it.
100%.
I think that we spend a lot of time thinking and pondering and worrying that we could have just spent all that time and energy doing something. You know, I think the needs in ministry are great. There's always a need. So my encouragement would just be, you know, if you see a need and you feel even a little bit of excitement about it, and you know what, sometimes you don't need to be excited about it. Maybe God is calling you to fill a need. Just go do it, you know. And
I often, I'm
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's basically what I would say.
Yeah, I often say to people, if you look at a situation and you say to yourself, somebody ought to do something about that, this probably means that you should be doing something about it.
Yeah.
You know, but when I'm thinking about Stella, who's so enthusiastic about, you know, the Golden Lampstand and ministry and doing work for the kingdom, but you know, so many women think that they can't do it. You know, they don't feel like they have the ability or whatever. And I personally think that that's probably one of your greatest qualifications, is thinking you don't have the ability, because then God can do it through you. You know, and we've heard that before, haven't we? We've heard that over and over and over again. But there's a basic truth to that. There's something so true about that. And God has a calling on every single person, no matter what they do. I see women, you know, like I'm an artist, so I paint and I'm creative, but I look at the, and I tell everybody, well, God's creative, so therefore you're creative. You know, because you're made in the image and likeness of God. So there is something in you that calls you to do something great for the kingdom of God. And even if you're a housewife and you clean your house, if you're like me, every time I clean my house, I want to rearrange the furniture, because I'm creative. I want to make it look good.
Yes.
And so it's being creative, and everything takes creativity. But we're afraid to take the risk. So I heard something the other day that said, dream. I heard it from a book called The Artesian Soul. Dream, risk, create. So when we dream about something, you know, thinking, I'd really, really like to do something like that, you have to take a risk. You know, we have to put our foot in the water before the water's parted, right? Before the sea, before the river parted. And they couldn't cross over into the promised land until the river parted. They had to put their foot in the water. They didn't wait for the water to part. They put their foot in, and then they could create, then they could build. They could build the kingdom from there. And I see that in all of our lives as women. There is something within us that says we're called to give birth. We're called to nurture things. We're called to to have compassion and love, and it's in our DNA. But we have so much that we can give. To me, it's probably, if I could give a message to all the women in the world, it would be just open up your heart and ask God to come and fill it, and so that you could just give out everything that He pours in. It would be such a much better world, wouldn't it?
But
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking, like now, to get back to today's society and what the world is like today, and there's so much going on with the pandemic and with the riots and the election and politics and hatred being spewed all over the place, and the silent. There is so much happening, and it's just so overwhelming. Overwhelming to a lot of women. What would you say to women today? And I'm asking this question of both of you. What would you say to women today when they see, what's going on in the world, and how have you responded to it? How have you responded to what you see happening in the news on a day-to-day basis?
So I'll go first.
Okay.
I think the first thing when the pandemic hit, of course, we keep our head up and the Lord, and first thing you ask, like, what do you want me to do? What can I do? I can't do anything. I can't fight this invisible virus, but what I can do is, like, I'm like, okay, everybody's scared, everybody's worried. The first thing I thought about is, like, my little things that I could do as a woman, right, is being a good neighbor. And I thought about, I've been so busy all my lives, and not even spending time at home. So I can spend more time at home. And actually, my relationship with my children is better. I have adult children, so you know how it's like. I have to text them to talk to them. So now, because we are forced at home, we actually have a common topic, which is the pandemic. You think about the good things that you can do, right? The first thing is the people around you. And then I never really got a chance to really chit chat with my neighbor, because I have to work and have ministry, now, but, we are all on the same page. So when we have to walk outside to take some fresh air, I could see my neighbor with social distancing, right? And we can chat a little bit, and it was so enjoyable. And what I did also is, like, one thing I thought about, like, I could do is, when the Lord say, love your neighbors, I don't even know them much. But now, because of the pandemic, we have a common language. I text them all and say, just want to let you know we are all in this together, unless, if you need anything, let me know. I got so much positive response from them, because they say, oh, this is nice. Although we really didn't do too much, still, but it's the kindness and the extension of the goodness, I think.
How about you, Sharon? How have you managed through all of this, and what would you say to women?
Yeah, I think for me, I've just been able to deepen certain relationships, because I'm not, going off to work, or, my work is pretty much me doing it from my home. I have all this extra time. So I've been writing notes, I've been calling up people and saying, let's just meet on Zoom or meet on FaceTime for 10-15 minutes. And so it's been very refreshing for me to deepen relationships as I'm trying to build new relationships here in Prince George. And I feel that as I focus on other people, and as I'm, attempting to be other-centered, it's just really helped me stop focusing on everything that might be a little negative. When I think about, oh man, I've not made as much progress as I would like in my work because of all the pandemic limitations. Well, when those thoughts come, I just send someone an email, and suddenly I'm thinking about them rather than thinking about me, myself, and what I think is wrong with everything that I am doing. So that's been very helpful for me.
Yeah. That's really good. Not thinking about me, myself, and I. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that we can fall into that trap very easily, couldn't we?
Yes.
Mm.
That
Yes.
it would be, you know, who cares about the rest of the world? What about me?
Mm-hmm.
You and so to learn how to take our eyes off of ourselves, and I guess in a sense, we take our eyes off of ourselves. We have to turn them towards Jesus,
Yeah.
and we have to allow Him to come in and speak to our spirits and speak to our hearts. I know for me, during the first few months of all this pandemic, I think it was we were just falling into a prayer pattern. We were praying like 3, 4, 5
Mm.
times a day, and it was pretty amazing. And it got to be where I didn't want to go back to the old lifestyle. I thought, boy, I could
Mm.
just become a contemplative and I could just live this way, and stay here on my little goat farm and have a happy life, me and the goats and Jesus. But that isn't reality either, because we are all called to go out. And
Yeah.
so we actually did start a farm church here. We had social distancing. And I think we had about 5 people gave their life to Jesus,
Mm.
as
It's
a result of it.
amazing.
And it's still going on, to
Oh,
this
praise God.
day. So it's like, yeah, and so many good things have happened. Obviously, there's a lot of bad issues that are still happening, but
Mhm.
we're very grateful, very, very
Mm.
grateful for what God's doing. So we only have about a couple of minutes left, and I'm just wondering if you could give one nugget of advice to a woman,
Mm.
from whatever it would be, what would that nugget be? High question.
Mm.
Mhm.
One piece of advice is what you're saying?
Yeah, if you could tell them if you really want to encourage and motivate somebody, and what would you say to those women out there who are maybe listening to this podcast, and they're saying, like, I can't be like Stella, I can't be like Sharon, but what would you say to them?
I think I would tell them that God created us all very beautifully, especially I believe that God created me as a woman in order for me to be influential and powerful. So as a woman, I think they need to think that way. And you
Mm.
never really look at other people. You look inside what's really um, like you were talking about, what you love, what you are passionate about, and go for it to serve others just by
Right.
maybe even making cookies for people. I mean, for your family, for your neighbors. I mean, this is ministry.
Sure, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
How about you, Sharon? What would you say?
I think I would share what has been coming back to me time and time again, which is, seek first the kingdom of God, and
Hmm.
all these things will be added unto you. So for whatever reason, we sometimes hesitate to jump into ministry, and they can all feel like very adequate reasons. I don't have time enough, I don't have resources enough, which are very real. They're real concerns.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, if this is God's invitation for you, and God's always inviting us to do something, whether it's involving, changing, thinking, reflecting, He's always inviting us to grow and develop. So I would say, take that as seeking first God's kingdom, and really, really know that He will give you all the resources you need for you to be able to do what He's called you to do.
Amen. So,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Stella, if people wanted to get in touch with you,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a website? Do you have an email or something where people
Yes.
could?
Definitely. I was just going to add to what Sharon was talking about too.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, the one thing good about women is we connect very well. So
Mm,
you are not going to do it alone, and you can
yeah.
totally be connected with us. That's the whole point of us doing women to women. So feel free to contact me if you want to chat or talk about things. My email address is stella@thegoldenlampstand.org. And it's just as it sounds, STELLATSE at thegoldenlampstand.org. So it's THEGOLDENLAMPSTAND. I know it's long, .org. But
Yeah, that's awesome. And how about you, Sharon? How would people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so for me, my first name, Sharon, SHARON, a dot in the middle, and then my last name, DHAVALE, @gmail.com, and you'll reach me.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And you can always reach out on through our Women to Women
yes,
Mm-hmm.
networking and get in touch with us. And I am so thankful for your being on tonight and having this conversation. This has been just great. And I
Thank
hope we can
you.
do it again
yeah,
very soon. This has just been fun.
this is
I just
enjoyable.
don't want to stop talking, but we're going to run out of time. So, but I am, and so I am Barbara Lachance, and I'm so glad that you all chose to join us and listen to this podcast. And please join us again at another time. So God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you,
was
Barbara. So
so
blessed.
good.